Welcome to the new TV studio right here downtown Trenton, the CNJ and TV Central New Jersey Network. And I am here with my friend Sandra, and I'm going to present to you Sandra, and your last name is?
Pucciati.
Pucciati, what a name, and it goes so well with who you're representing and what you are created, who is Boheme Opera. So tell us a little bit more about the name behind Boheme Opera.
I'm glad you asked that, Gabby, because that name started much earlier than the establishment of a professional company. It started back in 1981, that many years before we founded in 89. We had a club that we put together of musicians called the Boheme Club. But nobody could understand, where did that come from? It turns out that Giacomo Puccini founded a club in Italy, and it was made up of all of his artists and friends, musicians and painters and poets. But when they went into their clubhouse, they were naughty. And what they did was they talked to each other very condescendingly, and they said not so nice things about each other and what they really felt, and there was some drinking, I'm sure, card playing, etc. But when they left that clubhouse, they went right back to their lives as accomplished artists and poets and musicians. But what we did with our club is we established a musicians club where people could try out their performances in small concert rooms. We did salon concerts for each other, and it started to gain some popularity with the public in the area. Now we founded the Boheme Club in Chambersburg, Trenton, which was Italian Trenton. And I must tell you that it was probably the best thing that ever happened to us, because opera is, of course, comes from Italy. It's Italian. But we grew, of course, we evolved from that. But one day we decided to test the waters and see, would the community come out to see opera theater? So we planned to do I Pagliacci on the steps of St. Joachim's Church in Italian Trenton, Chambersburg, and we expected approximately 400 people. We told the city of Trenton that this would be a great collaborative thing. They brought bleachers for 400 people.
Wow.
1,200 people later, we had an enormous crowd out in the streets on Butler Street, which is where the Feast of Lights was, and it just developed so beautifully. And then from that, we knew that there was a market for it. But we still weren't ready to become a professional company until some years later. So we did a series of concerts under the name of Boheme Club, and then evolved finally to the company in 1989 on the main stage, believe it or not, of Trenton Central High School, the old Trenton Central High School.
Oh, yes.
Because my husband Joseph, my co-founder, had some relationships with teachers there. He was teaching in the district, not necessarily at the high school, but we pitched it to the district, and they loved the idea. After 2 seasons there, we met somebody else. It's a series of relationships that developed, and we took what they had to offer us and evolved that way. A gentleman we met named Vernon Hartman from the Met, he lived in Bucks County. We were very lucky that he was more locally based. And he said, you're too good to be in a high school. You need to be in a larger space. So in our 3rd season, we moved to the Trenton War Memorial, now called Patriots Theater. And we were there for quite some time. And there were a number of other moves because they renovated there, etc. But in 2011, we made a change to the College of New Jersey. And that was to, I would say, to update not only the state-of-the-art presentations that we were doing. We started with virtual sets. All these things were there at the college, and we also started to build a younger audience. So that brings us to 35 now.
35. So you've been into this realm of the industry 35 years.
Yes.
Correct. Now,
yes.
This is a fascinating segment of entertainment because, first of all, it's extremely different than other theater.
You might say theater genres because
Yes.
It's not Broadway,
Right.
it's not operetta,
Right.
but it is a specific kind of theater, not only because of the way the singers perform and how they use their voices without microphones.
That is amazing.
Right, it is.
Right.
But I think just the whole idea of the stories that are created through using history and literature and Shakespeare and all these, there's so many different stories
Right.
that
As
were,
an inspirational source.
yes, exactly.
Right. But the fascinating portion is really, I believe, you called it La Boheme Club, and now it's called
It was just the Boheme Club.
Boheme
There's
Club.
actually no law in our name.
There's no lie. It's the French in me, sorry.
And it's perfectly fine. And what's interesting, it's funny that you bring that up because the opera La Boheme takes place in Paris.
Right.
So, but it is an Italian because Puccini was Italian. So, but what's interesting is about theater itself, opera theater itself, is that it presents a whole different way of presenting evil and love, romance, so many different things. I had a friend who created this saying, going to the opera can be murder. Because the going thing is that so many people die in opera. Well, when you think about it and look at musical theater, don't know if opera has a hold on that alone. But it is a funny kind of thing. The other thing too is that that's so fascinating for us as a company is that we do a lot of traditional opera. So we don't do a lot of German and American opera or Russian opera, which is out there.
Right.
But we did dabble in some, and I thought I would mention that we did a fabulous production of West Side Story
Wow.
of Leonard Bernstein.
Very
which
nice.
is very soon. They're doing a film on him.
Okay.
So yeah, but we did a fabulous production with 20-somethings. It was one of the most difficult things we had ever done, and it wasn't pure opera.
And how come? Why?
Well, West Side Story is a dance show
Yes.
as well as an acting and singing show.
Yes.
So you had to find people that could do everything. And we
Singing,
weren't really,
acting,
that's
dancing.
right. That's right. And we didn't have the resources up to that point. That was in 2008. And I have to tell you, it was such a great success.
Right.
Such a
And
great success.
talking about resource, like how do you bring your performers?
Good question, actually.
Yes.
Many people don't know that we work with, I guess you would call them New York management agencies.
Okay.
And we've been working with them for over 28 years. Some are still with us. We still work personally with some because we know that they understand our company,
Yes.
our capabilities. We also have to think about the way that your casts interact with one another. It's not enough just to find a great leading role if that leading role is not quite the
Supported.
right person, right to be supported by
Right.
the rest of the cast.
Right.
So rather
So you
complicated.
do need that lead, but you also need all the supporting act to support
Right.
the lead. And like in any type of performance, meaning
right.
it comes down to it.
Yeah, I should mention that the principal casts, there's a difference between principal and supporting. We have
Right.
an Italian word for supporting is comprimarios.
Mm-hmm.
And so the principal and the comprimarios, when they are brought into our productions, the first thing to consider is where are they coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they come from all over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we have to deal with travel
Mm-hmm.
and accommodation,
Mm-hmm.
rehearsals and availabilities, and because many of these singers are very busy.
Mm-hmm.
Now the comprimario roles, they come from more local,
Right.
around here in our region. The principals are mostly managed, and the comprimarios mostly are not.
That comes the difficulty of
Yeah, yeah.
and so it's not probably not their primary job, would you say, or it is? But
You're very intuitive.
Right.
Actually, you're right. There's many that they're either teachers in school systems,
Right.
or they work. I know we used to have one of the actual principal singers worked at Home Depot. So there's a number, and we of different jobs that that the singers will go after to support their habit.
right, right.
Or their passion, I should
Or
say.
their passion. It's
Really.
really because it is at
Really.
this point, it is a true passion.
Oh, absolutely.
It is an art that asks so many different aspects of entertainment. You know, you do need to have, first of all, the voice, but you
Yes.
also need to know the knowledge and the history. And that brings me to another point: is that is the people, the performers, do they really need to know the language into which they sing into?
This is a very good question also. Not as a speaking language,
Okay.
but one of the things that's really important is that they know the traditions of the score,
Okay.
and not only how to pronounce, whether it's mostly Italian and French that we do. And we've done some American opera where English, by the way, is not the easiest language to sing.
Not in opera, at least.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
As much as it is in rock and roll.
Right, or musical theater, right? That's absolutely
Right,
true. But there, as far as the pronunciation, they are trained and coached
Okay.
on those things, and many of them, since they've been doing it for so long, it's
So
easy for them.
how long does it take a performer to arrive from the first day they start and they got their first little intro to something to become that lead into a play?
It varies.
It
It
varies.
varies. There are some that start very young. In fact, in this generation now of singers, they're starting younger than ever. Some of them have to be very careful, though, and this is something that even the average opera lover may not know. But when a singer begins early, they have to be very careful what repertoire they sing,
Right.
because they can actually hurt their voices
Break their
if they do
box.
something too soon, something that's either too heavy or too light
Yep,
or
yep.
too forceful, etc., etc. But it's an interesting thing as far as the amount of time. It could take anywhere from, I would say, 3 to maybe 12 years.
Wow.
Many stick to it a long time. Some of them begin in the chorus. Some of them grow into the comprimario roles, and finally to principal singers. I mean, we've had
Okay.
several like that who started with us, and we're very proud of this,
Right.
that we bridged their careers from our area to the Metropolitan Opera stage.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you are really a conduit, and that will bring me to that question, meaning I know you have a passion for the opera. This is your life, has been your life, but when you have created Boheme Opera, you always have a mission and an end game to what you create. So is this
Absolutely.
one of them?
Well, creating the art form and the capacity to do main stage opera, that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that Joseph and I both feel are very important. Yeah, try that again. One of the things that I feel is very important is that we think about the way the public perceives the art form.
Right.
A long time ago, it was that opera was, very highfalutin, and you had to dress up, and it was
Yes.
expensive to go, and if you
Yes.
had dinner, it could be a $500 night. Those days are over.
Okay.
Those days are over. We don't care how people dress when they come to the opera, as long as they partake and of what we have to offer. I think many of them had their favorite operas that they like to attend.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we call them cash cows because we get big audiences,
Right.
such as Traviata,
Right.
and one coming up this season, Carmen.
Yes.
And I do want to talk a teeny bit about that.
Sure.
But the whole idea of enriching the community and bringing something to them that they might not have thought about attending. Maybe it's on their bucket list one
Right.
time.
Right.
There have been many people that have told me they went to the opera. They had never been to one. They saw Madame Butterfly,
Yes.
or they saw Rigoletto. They saw operas that really had that memorable
Mm-hmm.
flavor, very memorable tunes or arias that people sing, or maybe there was a character that they loved, or maybe there was the costume they wore, or whatever it is, and then they're hooked.
Yes.
So I'm
It happened to me
Thrilled
with Butterfly, Madame Butterfly.
Oh yes, yeah.
That was an amazing performance. And
Oh.
it's true that even in, like, if you know nothing, about opera, or you have not been influenced in any, so you go see a performance like this, and there's no way that you can come out without having an impression on you. And then you want to perhaps go a little bit further, and that was to your point,
Yes.
is like, you bring those big names, and then you kind of get your followers, and then present them with other things.
Well, I do have to tell you that there's a phenomenon that happened with Boheme Opera about 8 years ago. It started. We found that when you bring opera artists or bring the music or even scenes to the community,
Yes.
they will come to you
Okay.
and see the main stage. But that has gotten so large now, our outreach. I mean, we are busy every month of the season.
That's great.
And so it's really amazing. Also, a couple of years ago, we started to do salon opera.
Okay.
Now we mixed it with, and this is when
Sounds
we
like
found
the king and the queen.
something like that.
Yeah.
except we added something that people didn't expect, and that is that we have now moved into the genre of musical theater and Broadway.
Nice.
Now, not every singer and not every artist can handle both and can do that kind of singing, because
Okay.
one is very, very intense. I hate to use the word intense, but they both can be. But I think opera requires a little bit more intensity from the voice and the scope of
The range.
putting it out there.
Right.
That's right, the range.
Right.
With musical theater, many singers depend on microphones.
Right.
And some, there are very few, they're a handful. There's a gentleman that we have cast a couple of times who spent 8 years on Broadway, received every award imaginable, and within 1 year, he just said one day, I'm tired of doing 7-8 shows a week.
Right.
It's a little,
It's a lot.
for the voice. I think I'm going to try opera because I really love it. And in 1 year, he was singing at the Metropolitan Opera.
Wow.
So, and so what's interesting is that there are singers like that, and there are others that have their years in opera and decide they're going to just go to musical theater in reverse.
In reverse.
Yeah,
Right.
and
right.
that's happened too. And we work with all of them.
That is such a great sensation, and it must be like such a family type of feeling, to know these people, because when you prepare, because you're coming up with your new season soon,
Yes.
so when you prepare to the new season, meaning you kind of living, breathing, eating together, right?
Well, yeah, I think when we prepare for our production, of course.
Right.
And it's interesting that you use the word family, because that's one of the reasons that we get so many return artists that want to work with us, because of it's not such a very high-end rehearsal process, and but it feels like family.
Right.
Actually, all of our first readings of every opera, of every show we've ever done, take place either in our home
Okay.
or in a space where perhaps a board member's home.
Right.
But it is family oriented, so they
Right.
call it the Boheme Opera family.
Right.
And I think that that's really boded well for us as far as the return artists that we really value.
Mm-hmm.
They have followings from our fan base.
Mm-hmm.
We even had members that went overseas to see some of our artists.
Wow.
So it's really it's an interesting collaboration.
Community.
Yeah. Now, as far as community is concerned, we if I can move into our 35th season.
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Okay. So I'm not sure where to start, but I do have to tell you that we decided to do something that I mentioned earlier, bringing opera theater to the public.
Yes, I love that idea.
And so we are performing Amal and the Night Visitors, a wonderful inspirational opera by Giancarlo Menotti. It was the first television opera performed in 1951 on TV for the first time with NBC.
Oh.
It founded the Hallmark Hall of Fame. There's
Wow.
that performance. And once that was performed, it won the hearts of Americans all over the country.
And why was
And,
that? The storyline?
Well,
or?
the story is about a young boy who is crippled, and they're very poor. It's he and his mother live in this kind of a very dilapidated home. And he is, Amal, the young boy, usually tells tall tales. And it's because his imagination is wandering. And all he can do is he limps around on a crutch. He can't walk very well. And so he's always dreaming up things, and he's always dreaming about the stars and playing his little flute, and he's doing little things that kids do.
Right.
And one day there's a knock at the door, and he answers the door, and there is a king at the door.
Ooh.
Now the story revolves around the visit of the three magi, and they are on their way to visit the Christ child. And when the mother realizes that they have treasures with them, and gold, and all sorts of interesting things, they ask if they can stay there for the night because they're tired. And so what they decide to do is to introduce themselves, and they ask what Amal does, and he used to be a shepherd and all that, and they become acquainted. But and they decide to invite some of the community, the other shepherds in the area, and there's a beautiful dance in the middle, so there's sort of entertainment in the middle. But when everybody goes to sleep, the mother is enticed by the gold.
The gold.
And she tries to
steal it.
Now, there's a page that brought the three magi that sort of is in charge of their belongings.
Right.
He wakes up and finds her doing that.
Okay.
And there's a hullabaloo about it, and this is a terrible thing, you're a thief, and da-da-da-da, and all this. And Amal says, "Don't hurt my mother. She didn't mean it. I'm sure that she did it for me." And, so one of the kings, by the way, the kings are King Caspar, King Melchior, and King Balthasar. And so one of them says, King Melchior says, you know what? Keep the gold. We understand your situation. And so Amal says, well, I'd like to give something to the baby
Right.
as well. How about I just give my crutch? And the mother's astonished. But Amal, you can't walk without that.
Right.
So when the crutch is handed over,
Uh-huh.
he can suddenly walk.
A miracle.
And that's the whole, it's a
Promises.
miracle story,
Right.
of it. And so the Magi actually want to touch Amal because it's a sort of a conduit between
Right.
the Christ child and
Right.
this poor boy. And so they asked, do you want to come with us? And you can bring the crutch yourself. And that's how it ends. And it's beautiful story and beautiful music. Beautiful music. And we do it with
So when
orchestra too. Now
so when is this
that's
starting?
coming up. Actually, we're doing 3 performances in 3 different churches, and that
Okay.
is the way that we're bringing it to the community.
Okay.
We're doing a St. Mary's Church in Bordentown on December 3rd,
Okay.
at Church of St. Gregory the Great on December 10, all this coming December, and St. David the King in Princeton Junction
Okay.
on the 16th.
Huh?
But all of that is on our website,
Right.
bohemeopera.org, and we're so excited about this because we have a great cast, of course, but we are premiering 2 young singers,
Okay.
and they will share the role of Amal between the 3 performances. We're
So when
working
you
on
say
that now.
young,
One is
obviously-
11
Okay.
and one is 14,
Okay.
but they're shorter, and they're
Right.
but the voices are already developing, and so my husband is Joseph, and their teachers are coaching them,
Right. Right.
and as we speak, they
So
are
this is
getting
like
ready.
an unbelievable opportunity for those 2 young men.
Oh, actually, it's 2 young girls.
Oh.
2 young
Okay.
girls. We did go through an audition process, and it's very interesting. Young girls' voices develop faster and quicker and more focused
Okay.
than young boys.
Ah.
Yeah, and so
interesting.
because you see, at the age of 12, 13, the boys' voices are changing,
Yes.
and this is written for boy soprano.
Right.
So, but we did
Okay.
audition both boys and girls, and
And-
these are the best. One actually, they're both from Pennsylvania, but it's right over the bridge. But I'm very, very excited about having them and the rest of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
We have a chorus
Mm-hmm.
of shepherds, which is it's just beautiful, beautiful music, and we have a dancer as well. She's Russian, actually.
So when you bring this to the church, that's meaning you need to move everybody in the church, move all the decor.
Well, what we're doing it is, in 2 of the 3 churches, we're actually staging it on the, I guess what you call the altar.
Okay.
The altar itself.
Becomes
And
the main.
becomes, right, and we had actually done them all one time in 2019 on the altar at Immaculate Conception in Trenton, and it was a great success.
Right, right.
So we used that as a sort of a template,
Mm-hmm.
but all the churches are different.
Right.
So,
Yes.
the last church, St. David the King, the altar was too, it was not conducive for
Right.
staging. So they have a marvelous large community hall,
Right.
which they use when they're
Mm-hmm.
not doing
Anything,
masses in there. All 3
Right.
churches are Catholic churches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're thrilled. All the priests, the authorities there, everyone is very excited.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's going to probably come out very soon as far as each one. They're doing announcements from the pulpit. They're
Yes.
doing all sorts of stuff in their bulletins and
Right, right.
in the Monitor and all sorts of places. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So watch it on the website. The dates are the 3, 10, and 16.
That's correct.
That's correct.
On bohemeopera.org.
That's
Yeah.
right. So what is the next one?
So in between all that, we're doing all of our outreach stuff.
Right.
And what we do is we sometimes sort of lean some of our outreach towards what's going on in the spring.
Right.
And in the spring, we are bringing a new production of Carmen to the main stage.
Carmen.
Georges Bizet, Carmen.
We're all gonna cry.
Oh my God! And it's about the bad girl of opera.
Ah, the bad girl.
And that's what I call her.
This one?
Oh, well, she is a very interesting character in opera because nothing bothers her. If she develops a relationship with some guy,
She's a free spirit.
she absolutely,
Yes.
she's a gypsy as well.
She is a gypsy.
And so she teases and not only our main figure, Don Jose, who's one of the people, but she flirts with everybody. But I have to tell you that she works in a cigarette factory, you see. And the girls, even though they are sort of jealous of her, I think that they see that, she's strong and they want to be like her.
Yes, great message.
So, yeah.
Somehow.
Yes.
Somehow.
That's true. But now, so she does befriend one of the officers, Don Jose, and after a while gets a little tired of him, especially when Escamillo, the toreador that comes to town, starts to befriend her. And so she's, the heck with Jose, I want this guy now.
Right.
I think that she threw away the wrong guy because Jose is not only temperamental, but he has a streak in him that she did not see. And that will be her undoing. I won't say anything more.
Gotta watch it.
But I have to tell you, this particular production is taking place in Franco, Spain in the 1940s and 50s. And we are bringing in the Alborada Spanish Dance Theater. They're from Woodbridge, New Jersey.
Okay.
And they're going to dance several segments of the opera.
That is amazing.
So it's going to be quite exciting.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is
so-
going to be spectacular.
And one other little thing, too, there's a children's chorus in Carmen.
Okay.
And we are using children from the Princeton Boy Choir and Girl Choir. So it's a true collaborative and community-based
Yes,
production.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, and so many textures and different layers and groups, and that it's going to be very strong.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we've done
The dates
Carmen.
are when?
The date for Carmen, the dates are March 15th and 17th,
Okay.
2024.
Mark your calendar.
But I'm so excited about also, we are bringing back the director of our Madame Butterfly, Stefanos Koroneos, and he is a very up-and-coming director, opera director. And I have to tell you, he had such marvelous ideas for Butterfly. We can't wait to see what his ideas are for Carmen.
Okay. So how long does it take to, like, you working now already for March? So are you already prepping everybody, or how long does it take to really put everybody together?
Yeah, the process for staging does not happen until
The end.
approximately we'd start about laying it out 6 weeks ahead, which
Okay.
involves.
So this is where the director comes in.
That's right.
And do his magic, because he's gonna say the stage look like this, and they're
Right.
gonna enter
Well,
here, and so
there
on.
is a step before that.
Okay.
There is a step before that, actually. And that's all those people that work backstage.
Yes.
So the lighting designer,
We know that.
our virtual set designer.
Yes.
We have wig, hair, and makeup designer, costume designer. I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
Plus the tech stuff, too, because when we do virtual sets, we are projecting.
Okay.
But we have a wonderful virtual artist and animator. J. Matthew Root is his name, and we've been working with him since 2011.
Okay.
And he has created some magnificent virtual sets.
Yes.
I know that there's a few things here. I don't know if I have them here. And when we actually do the sets, he has to send, and this is weeks ahead, sends mock-ups and drafts. And so those ideas are a mix of his and the director's. And sometimes Joseph becomes involved too, depending on what it is that's being done musically at that time. Now, I didn't mention that Joseph is the conductor, but he also prepares the chorus, and he's sort of the leader of the artistic team. And they've already had 2 production meetings already.
Yes.
And it's that far away. And even, I think people should know too that even at the regional level, it takes time to really think about the concept and how it will come across.
Right.
There's another interesting thing we're doing. We are doing the actual dialogue is going to be in English.
Do that one again because of the cough.
That's okay.
Yes.
Actually, another interesting concept for us, for Carmen, is that we're going to sing everything in French, but we're going to, because it is in French. I mean, Carmen was done by Bizet, was composed by Bizet, but the what we call the recitatives, the spoken kind of dialogue, is going to be in English, so people can follow. Yeah,
that is very smart.
Yeah, see, Bizet's intent was that he wrote recitatives in French. So there's people talking to one another between the scenes and the arias, and what are they saying? And we thought it would be really helpful to do it in English first. So we've tweaked the dialogue through the translation, and the cast is now receiving that, and they'll have to memorize that, just like they memorize the singing.
I don't know how to do that.
Actually, me being a concert pianist, it's enough that I have to memorize music.
Right.
I don't know how they memorize the words in their languages, and then their staging and where they go, how they interact. I mean, it's quite something.
It's a lot to do in one body.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I think the advantage with some of musical theater, even though that's also live, is that it is in English, all in English, and not in a foreign language.
Good.
So, So
now, who organized all this? Because you have the director, that's going to take care about the stage. You have the musical leader team. Your husband. You have you. So who organized all those bits to come together?
It's mostly Joseph.
Okay.
It's mostly Joseph. The hat that he wears, the umbrella hat that he wears, is the artistic director.
Okay.
And an artistic director of most companies pulls everything together, or makes sure that they each meet and collaborate and talk about what could be, should be, whatever. On my end, me being managing director, I deal with all the other stuff relating to marketing, administrating contracts, and dealing with locations, rehearsal space. It's a long list of stuff.
Right.
But for the most part, we do come together for some things.
Yes.
But for the most part, now, once the director comes in, though, it's his production.
Yeah. You have no more say.
Well, I don't ever have any say because I don't want to have a say. But I think that there are actually occasions where, in the midst of what they call blocking rehearsals or staging rehearsals, the director might say, I'm not sure that what I had you do is working. An artist might step forward, well, I was thinking, why don't we maybe try this instead? And sometimes the director likes that and will take it and insert it into his plan.
Just like a movie. Same thing. So many people to put together while you do a movie, what you don't see, the behind the scene, everything you don't see. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we have that coming in March. What else do we have?
Well, the outreach that I mentioned is very interesting. That we're trying to expand our geographic reach.
Okay.
So we have, not to go into what we're doing, but most of these things are thematically based, our outreach. We have a series we do at Monroe Township Library that we've been doing now. This is our 10th year doing it there. And what we do is we bring in thematic presentations. They might be something based on the development of French opera, or the music of Verdi, or music of Puccini. And then when we expanded and said, well, what about musical theater? So we bring in Rodgers and Hammerstein, and we do a number of different things. We must have at least 30 different themes that we bring in different singers.
Okay.
And they are lecture performances.
Okay.
They're 1 hour long.
Oh.
And they were introduced actually by our president,
Okay.
Gerald Kalstein, and he's been doing this from the beginning when we first started at Monroe. And Monroe, they pack the house every time.
Nice.
I think it maxes out at about between 150 and 175. And one of the things that we offer there is free presentations because we are contracted. So this gives seniors and families a chance to attend something and sample what we do.
Right. And I had the chance to sample what you did, right, in at the event of Northfield.
At Northfield Bank, yes.
And you had your two opera singers there. We had a chance to listen at least 4 songs, I believe.
Well,
Yes.
each of them sang 2 solos,
Okay,
and then they
2
sang a duet. I could have danced all night.
Oh!
It was fun. And for example, by the way, those singers, Carrie Lynn Slaminsky, the soprano, was our Gretel,
Okay,
and last season's Hansel and Gretel.
right.
The other gentleman, the baritone, Dante Doganiero, he is our Remendado for Carmen, and also he'll be joining us in the chorus of Amal. So
Nice.
they do tend to participate in various things depending on their availability.
Right.
And I think certain singers are very, very, for want of another word, they interact very well. Doesn't matter who else is coming in.
Right.
And that's rather important, that we have singers that are committed to our concepts, to our mission.
Yes.
And we've been very, very fortunate
Yes.
that the majority are.
Yes.
Yes. So.
Because I believe you could have a little bit of tension depending the talent that comes into the house, like competition. Does she get more lines than me? Or
Well, it's not so much that
No.
because they know the roles that they're
Okay.
going to get. But I think that you did hit upon something that can can happen. I mean, we had, if I have a moment for one incident, when a director wanted to have the soprano interact with the tenor, not to say what the show was, but the whole thing was that the tenor was, and rightly so because it called for it in the score, was handling her a little roughly.
Oh, okay.
And finally, the tenor said, "Well, look, it's either her or me."
Ah, yeah. You see? It
And-
happens even in
yeah,
the opera.
yeah,
Not only corporate
yeah.
America.
And so the outcome wasn't good, but
Right.
but it turned out well for us
Right.
because we ended up replacing one of them.
Okay. All right.
So, but things happen. I think.
Yeah. It's part of life anyway.
Yeah,
It's
and
everywhere.
it's part of the art form too.
And it is part of the art form. And you
So-
cannot, meaning, like you said it before, when you put a production together, people need to have that synergy because otherwise it's going to come across and you cannot have that while the public is here. They are feeling all that.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
sure. And it's interesting. That's a very good point that you bring up. Also, each person that plays a particular role must have an understanding of how that role evolves throughout the opera.
Yeah.
And that's something that depends on interaction. So there's, in the case of Carmen, Carmen really doesn't evolve. She is the way she is from the beginning. And so that's
and you can't say at the end because you gotta come and watch.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Although I'm sure many people know the story. But as far as her interaction, I mean, it's. I think Bizet was just brilliant, and it was so sad that he never lived to see the success of Carmen. Yeah, he passed away young, and he thought it was a failure. Boy, he should know it's one of the most performed operas in the entire world.
That is many artists of these times anyway in different categories have left their mark like this.
Yes.
Never really living their success. Meaning it is
sad.
more a fact of our time to be able to live your success as an artist. But what is so this is what's coming up for the season. The long-term goal of Boheme Opera?
Well, as far as actual repertoire, that has not been
discussed yet.
Well, it's been discussed, but we haven't unveiled anything yet.
Right.
But the main thing for us is we are working on audience development, because I feel that opera, and I'm not the only one that feels this way, I think opera has so much to offer. It's not simply some people on a stage singing and a story unfolding. There's a lot more to it. There's so many careers that develop from opera.
Lighting, sound.
That's right.
Yes.
There's so much.
Makeup.
And we do bridge these careers, and that's one of the things that we're working on very, very outwardly. And that is that we're developing relationships with colleges and schools, and we have some programs that we hope to get back into the schools, because I think once young people are exposed to it, they feel like they are in the know a little bit more than the average. You know, we had a program called Inside Opera that was tremendously successful, but now we have to work on getting more funding for that.
Right, and that brings to the point that Boheme Opera is a non-profit.
That's right. We're a nonprofit 501c3, and we have a number of different things that we collaborate with, particularly the chambers. The Princeton Mercer Regional Chamber of Commerce has been wonderful with us. The Burlington Mercer Chamber of Commerce, we're members of Art Pride New Jersey, and we have, of course, funding collaboration with New Jersey State Council on the Arts Department of State, and we've been with them many years, and we're very fortunate to still remain with them, and the more that we can put opera out there, not necessarily just as an art form, but it has so much to offer in
career development.
Yes. And it's not about just the singing, but it's the collaboration.
Yes.
And working with how all the different parts of the opera come together. And that's, to me, is more fascinating, I think, than doing the opera. I mean, I mean, I know what happens when the curtain opens and what went into it. There's a school that we went to in Passaic County, the Passaic County Technical Institute, and they have a School of the Performing Arts. They invited us there to bring a presentation, which we did, but we didn't realize that what the main reason was. I mean, of course, to bring some operatic stuff and etc. But they didn't know where to send their seniors that want to major in theater, whether it's musical theater or opera, they didn't know how to guide them. What resources do they need to develop? How do they audition? How do they do this? So we are also getting involved in that.
And I think that's a very important point, effectively, because I can see even when you recruit talents for a talk show like here at the TV station, or or any areas like that, the funnel to get in is not always so obvious.
That is true.
Right.
That is true. And so many young people, they have the support of their families and their parents, but it's not always enough.
No.
It's not always
True.
enough. And so it has to come from some type of educational institute or...
Right. So with that, you're gonna have, of course, the outreach. You have the performance, and watching the sale of the ticket through the shows. You also have the donations, and they can always go, even if they don't go to see a show, they can always help by doing a donation through the website.
Oh yes, and sometimes people, I have, besides businesses and corps, the individuals tend to want to sponsor something because they know someone in the cast or whatever, or in the company.
Yes.
So yeah, but there's a lot of opportunity. There's no question about it. But I think the large picture is that opera is here to stay, and it's been that way for a long time. And despite what some naysayers will, talk about, but it's definitely a difficult sell because it is not a mainstream, what I call a mainstream art form.
Sure.
So we also do a virtual series on our website, by the way.
Great.
Joe has started something called Who's Afraid of Opera? And we have 7 episodes on there, and he's working on the 8th episode now. And that's an ongoing thing. But I think, despite everything that you can do, we do it because we believe in it. And that's the bottom line.
That is the bottom line. So there you have it. Go visit their website again.
www.bohemeopera.org.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Gabby. I loved talking with you.
There you go.
Okay, now you're going to do a couple of things because this is an hour show.
I know. Whew.
So
I know.
what you're going to do is stay in the same place.
Okay.
You're going to say something like, that was only part 1 of our fascinating interview with, and you go, stay tuned for part 2.
Okay.
We're going to break it into 4 parts also.
Yes.
We'll show the whole thing because they have a website.
I'm sorry
anyway.
I got so
No. What we're going to do is make sure it breaks into parts seamlessly. And you can say something like, stay tuned for our next fascinating interview with or part 2 or whatever you want to say. But do one of those now, and then we'll do another one.
Okay. Me.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you want me to say
Let
it?
me turn it off and on.
Yeah.
So that I know